Hello everyone, it's New York Railfan 202 here, and today we are going to be finishing Engines of Metro-North by discussing the Bombardier Shoreliner used on Metro-North Railroad. The Shoreliner is extremely similar to a New Jersey Transit Comet, an MBTA BTC or CTC-1 coach, or an Amtrak Horizon, and I will discuss the differences between them and their intertwined history in this video. Before we get started, to see my future uploads, please make sure that you're subscribed because I know that 80% of you probably aren't. Now without further ado, let's get started. In the 1960s, the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad was a pioneer of commuter service in the Chicago area. Their galley bi-level cars were the most modern passenger cars of the time, featuring many firsts for the railroad industry. The coaches used electricity for heating and lighting, which made the heating system much more powerful than the previous steam-heated cars. The electrical power would be provided from a diesel generator in the locomotive, giving this system the name of head-end power. The galley cars used on the Chicago and Northwestern also featured several cab cars, where a car at the end of the train would contain a cab for the engineer to drive the train. When the train would reach the end of the line, the engineer would simply switch ends and the train could easily carry on in the other direction. These two revolutionary systems caught the attention of railroads around the country, as the added efficiency and comfort of the galley railcar was revolutionary. Pullman, the builder of the galley railcar, would end up building 326 cars for the Chicago and Northwestern. The New Jersey Department of Transportation was looking to modernize the Erie-Lackawanna commuter routes in the north of the state. The agency had seen the success of the Pullman galley cars and wanted similar rail cars for these routes. However, a bi-level car was too tall for the northeastern railroad trackage, so a single-level car was needed. NJ DOT, therefore, had Pullman build a single-level version of the coaches for the Erie-Lackawanna. These new cars would be called diesel liners, and would be ordered alongside new head-end power-equipped U-34CH locomotives. The diesel liner cars would be completely revolutionary and modern, with their stainless steel construction and automatic sliding doors. These cars featured head-end power and control cabs just like Pullman galley cars. These cars weren't only compatible with low-level platforms, as that was all that existed on the Erie-Lackawanna commuter routes. The cars started a new era in commuting with their modern features and styling. In the end, 155 cars were built, with 10 coaches, 35 cab cars, and 10 bar cars, which were delivered from 1970 to 1973. Seeing the success of the diesel liners in New Jersey, the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority wanted some modern cars of their own, so they asked Pullman to build them their own set of diesel liner coaches. However, the MBTA version would be compatible with high and low-level platforms, as it would contain a high-level door with a trapdoor that would fold down to cover steps for low-level platforms. These cars would be designated as CTC-1s and BTC-1s, with CTC meaning control trailer coach and BTC meaning blind trailer coach. These cars would be delivered in 1978. The cars were designed to be pulled by the railroad's newly built EMD FP10 locomotives, as those locomotives were equipped with head-end power. These would be some of the last cars that Pullman would build, as in 1982 the company would cease railcar production. Many of the company's designs, including the Comet, would then be acquired by Bombardier Transportation. In 1978, Comet 1B cars would be produced by General Electric from surplus Aero 3 EMU shells. These cars would look like Aero 3 EMUs, but function like Comet railcars. This led to the nickname of Camaro, a combination of Comet and Aero. The MTA would acquire these cars for use on the railroads west of Hudson routes. In the early 1980s, the commuter railroads operated by Conrail were forced to be taken over by state agencies. This meant that operations were now under the direct control of newly created state agencies, such as New Jersey Transit and Metro-North. The newly formed New Jersey Transit still had a lot of steam-heated passenger cars operating on its lines in the south of the state. Realizing a new order of cars was needed, the railroad turned to Bombardier for some new coaches based on the diesel liners. These cars would need to accommodate high and low-level platforms, as the rest of the New Jersey transit system featured a combination of the two. It was decided to therefore base the cars off the MBTA's CTC-1 and BTC-1 coaches, as they could accommodate both platform types. These cars were primarily meant for use on the former Central Railroad of New Jersey lines and Blue Comet train to Atlantic City. This led the cars being named Comets, with the diesel liners being named Comet 1s, and this new order being named Comet 2s. The main difference between the BTC-1 and Comet 2s are that the doors on the Comet 2s cover the stairs and are referred to long doors, while the BTC-1s have short doors. These cars were built from 1982 to 1983. In 1983, when Metro-North was looking to start standardizing its fleet of coaches, it looked to the Comet design, which had become the standard among Northeast railroads. Metro-North, therefore, ordered Comets of their own. However, Metro-North's models lacked a window on the conductor's position and short doors that do not cover the low boarding steps. The cars in this first order were called Shoreliner 1s, after the New Haven Railroad's nickname for their Butt RDCs. This order consisted of just 39 cars. Metro-North also ordered their own fleet of 19 Comet 2s for west of Hudson service. These cars would be identical to the New Jersey Transit cars, as they were to be operated by that railroad. ConnDOT would also order their own Shoreliner 1s, 4 of which would contain their own head and power generators under the floor. The ductwork for these generators meant that the cars have 2 small windows at the center of the car to allow the ducting to pass between them. In 1987, Septa would order their own fleet of Comet-based railcars, and they would be almost identical to the Shoreliner 1s on Metro-North. Septa would order 10 cab cars and 25 coaches, and designate them as Septa 1s. In 1987, New Jersey Transit chose to have some of their retired problematic Aero 2 EMUs rebuilt into non-powered coaches. These coaches were designated as Comet 1Bs and were rebuilt from 1987 to 1988. Also in 1987, New Jersey Transit would have some of their Comet 1 fleet rebuilt by Bombardier to accommodate high-level platforms. This was also when the bar cars were converted to standard coaches, but not all Comet 1s would receive this rebuild. In 1988, Amtrak placed an order for a Comet-based railcar for intercity service, primarily on the Midwestern routes. These cars would feature short doors and 2x2 seating, as opposed to the typical 3x2 seen in commuter service. 86 of the cars ordered would be standard coaches, with an additional 16 being cafe cars. The order was delivered from 1989 to 1990. New Jersey Transit then placed a second order of Comet 2s in 1988, which would be delivered that same year. Metro-North also placed an order for 36 more Shoreliners in 1988, although this order would be designated Shoreliner 2s. The MBTA wished for more Comet-based railcars. The agency ordered BTC-1B and CTC-1B coaches in 1989. These cars were identical to Metro-North's Shoreliner 2s and were delivered between 1989 and 1990, except they do have the additional window in the conductor's position. Exo in Montreal ordered 24 Comet 2-based coaches in 1989, and they were delivered that same year. In 1990, a new version of the Comet was introduced, the Comet 3, which featured center doors. This order, like all other New Jersey Transit orders, featured long doors. However, the center door can only be used on high-level platforms. Metro-North also purchased their own fleet of Comet 3s for west of Hudson service. In 1991, Metro-North ordered 49 Shoreliner 3s. These cars featured center doors just like the Comet 3s, and the center doors could only be used for high-level platforms. The cars also feature center restrooms in the cars that contain them. In 1995, the MBTA rebuilt their CTC and BTC-1s into CTC-1C cars. Cab cars were converted into standard trailers, and all were modernized. In 1996, Metro-North sent out their Comet 2s and Shoreliner 1s for rebuilding to make them more similar to the Comet 4s and Shoreliner 4s respectively. In 1996, New Jersey Transit purchased Comet 4s, which were modernized Comet 3s, just with the engineer's door removed for safety. In 1996, Metro-North also ordered their own Shoreliner 4s, based on the Comet 4s. As usual, the Metro-North cars would feature short doors, unlike the New Jersey Transit order. 50 Metro-North cars were completed from 1996 to 1997, with 10 additional ConnDOT cars being completed in 1998. In 1998, Metro-North also sold their fleet of Comet 3s used in west of Hudson service to New Jersey Transit. New Jersey Transit was then looking for a new and modern commuter car. The agency ordered a new Comet 5 railcar, which would be produced by Alstom. These cars would be made of shiny stainless steel. The cars would be ordered in 1999 and delivered from 2002 to 2004. Metro-North also ordered 65 Comet 5s to replace their west of Hudson coach fleet. With the addition of the Comet 5s, all other Comet cab cars were deactivated, as now only Comet 5s can lead trains. Bombardier also produced the last of the Comet cars they would ever make, when they would produce 10 Comet 4-based coaches for Septa, designated as Septa 2s. In 1999, New Jersey Transit sent out their Comet 2s for rebuilding by Alstom to make them similar and compatible with Comet 4 equipment. In 2005, New Jersey Transit retired all the low-door Comet cars, and Metro-North retired all the Comet 1As. Some were sold to the Utah Transit Authority and converted into bike cars. Many of the other cars were leased to commuter railroads out on the West Coast with their low platform setup, but have since been returned. The railroad retired its fleet of Comet 1Bs later on in 2008. Some of the Comet 1Bs were then purchased by the California Department of Transportation, where they were converted into intercity train sets. The cab cars were converted into standard coaches, and the cars were modernized with Wi-Fi and reclining seats. The first of 2 sets entered service in 2013, with the second joining a year later. Metro-North then modernized its fleet of Comet 2s, which were transferred to east of Hudson service in 2009, alongside their fleet of Shoreliner 1s and 2s. Metro-North also purchased Comet 3s from New Jersey Transit to become the new business train, but so far that has not happened. In 2011, New Jersey Transit retired the last of their Comet 1 and Comet 3 cars due to the arrival of their multi-level coaches. The Comet 3s still sit in Bayhead Yard waiting for their ultimate scrapping, as the cars had been flooded with salt water during Hurricane Sandy. In 2012, Exo modernized their fleet of Comet 2s, with the program finishing in 2013. That brings us right up to date, with New Jersey Transit retiring all of their Comet 1s, 1Bs, and Comet 3s, and restricting Comet 2 and 4 cab cars from leading any trains. Every other railroad with Comet-based railcars has kept all of them in service for oftentimes close to 50 years. Metro-North, the MBTA, Septa, Amtrak, and Exo are still operating them, albeit with slight modifications, just like they were in 1980. As for Metro-North Shoreliners, all are still in service except for those damaged in the 2013 Sputin Devil derailment. You can always tell which Shoreliner is owned by Metro-North or ConDOT due to the blue stripe on Metro-North owned cars and the red stripe on ConDOT owned cars. But the Shoreliners may not be safe forever, as Metro-North and many other railroads are expressing interest in multi-level coaches to replace them. Even so, the Comet-based railcars make up the backbone of the Northeast Railroad's coach fleet. And that is all about the Shoreliner, Comet, CTC, Horizon, or whatever you wish to call it. All that is important is that you recognize that these railcars came from the same base and a company that no longer exists. If you like this video, like it, and if you loved it, please subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.